Good afternoon and welcome to the January meeting of the Murfreesboro Historic Zoning Commission. Brenda, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Linda Anderson.
Here.
Gib Backlund.
Here.
David Becker.
Here.
Deborah Belcher.
Here.
Rick Cantrell.
Here.
Paul Cross.
Here.
Jim Thompson.
Here.
Mary Mae White. Howard Wilson.
We do have a quorum, so we'll begin today. All the committee members should have received minutes of the last meeting held in December. Are there any corrections or necessary edits? If not, the chair would welcome a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Without any further discussion, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Then the minutes are approved and as written. Thank you. Robert, would you please go over then our first bit of business today?
Sure, Chairman Thompson. The only agenda item we have today is the address is 346 East Main Street. The applicants are David and Julie Becker. They're requesting to replace an existing 4-foot high wooden picket fence behind the house in their rear courtyard with a 4-foot high metal fence. They want to add metal gates that are off of East Main Street and South Manning Avenue and off of the rear parking lot. In addition to that, they'd like to replace the arbor that they have behind the house near the parking lot. And all this is going to be with aluminum type fencing. Like I say, they have their the metal fence. They have an example of it on the front up in front of us. Mr. Becker is here in the I think here he is at the podium. The brochure that or the package that I sent out, it shows has a site plan showing where the gates are going to be, and I circled them to show the approximate location where the gates are. The fence is located behind the house where those small X's are. Like they're wanting to replace the wooden fence with the metal. Included in your package is some pictures of the property, showing the location of the gates and the arbors and the arbor. And Mr. Becker is available to answer any questions. I'll be able to answer any questions and show you the example of what he's got if you need to.
Okay. Mr. Becker, would you like to review any more detail than what Robert's presented to us today?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Becker. I reside at 346 East Main Street. First of all, the purpose of replacing the wooden picket fence, which is approximately 13 or 14 years old, is the constant rotting because of weather and termites, and so we'd like to replace it with the same height, the 4-foot aluminum fence. And the reason for the arbor is steel. It's only about 7 years old, but it's rusting from inside out. So we wanted then to replace the arbor to have it match the gates and the fence. Paul Cross has the examples of the fence in front of him, and I'll come up and show you a more closer example. But you'll see the arrows as he passes it by.
The arrows are indicating two different.
Yes, and I'll explain that now. It's a great question.
Okay.
You got to turn it on, David.
Power says on?
He checked it earlier. Oh, it should be on.
This is an example of the fence. Now, the reason there's two pictures, the only difference on this fence, on the one, first the ones we want to put up, is there will be an 18-inch short picket to match these pickets, and they're also known as puppy pickets, since if we decide to have a puppy down the road, the puppy can't sneak out between the gates. So the fence will actually have the puppy pickets on in addition to this. Okay. And Paul also has examples of colors. We did not want to go with the shiny black because of the home being 110 years old. So we're going to go with the dark bronze, which is at the bottom of the sample that he is going to be passing to you, to have it make a little bit look older than it would be when it's brand new. Is there any questions on the fence before I get to the gates?
Is the actual fence going to have the bar across the top
Yes,
so
sir.
that the pickets are covered?
Yes, sir.
Any particular reason for that?
It's just because of the examples that it seemed to appeal to Julie and myself. And if you, the other issue also is the side railings that we already have that are original to the house are solid across the top. If you go to the next page, you'll see an example of the arbor. And that's the next page in the pamphlet. It's marked gates. The gates that we want to put on the fence itself is marked. It's the flat top, so it'll match the fence exactly. The gates that will be put at the sidewalk entrance to the property and to the arbor entrance will be the arched rolled gate, as you see marked with the arrows. And they'll be placed on the sidewalk entrance in between the U hedge.
Are the gate openings wide enough or too wide that they require two gates, or are they a single gate at each location?
They'll all be single gates.
Single gates. What questions does the commission have of the applicant?
You're placing gates at each sidewalk entrance to the house, is that
Yes, sir.
correct? Is there a fence that it joins to, or
It's a hedge.
the hedge?
They're
Okay.
used
Uh-huh.
that we planted many years ago, so they're filled in completely. And the gate then would just provide some privacy to the property and finish it off.
For the commission, the Xed line is a traditional symbol for fencing, and that's where you're intending to replace the fence, and any of the
Correct.
circles are the gates. And we're assuming that there is a gate at the fence that's not circled there at the top.
Yes, there's actually
One or two gates within the fence itself.
going to be 4 gates to the fence itself.
Okay, they're written there, I see, okay, yes.
Which there are currently 4 gates on the current wood fence.
Is this going to be the same size as the picket fence?
Yes, it'll be 4 foot. Current picket fence is 4 foot, and this aluminum fence will be 4 foot.
I'm sorry, I mean the area you're covering.
Yes.
The area you're enclosing.
Yes.
Okay.
And the gates will be 4 foot as well?
Yes.
Is there any other questions? Any other questions from the commission? Then the chair would welcome a motion on the approval of this.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the complete package as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? Then those in favor of the motion to accept the design as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Then the motion is accepted.
Thank you.
Robert, what other business do we have before the board?
I handed out earlier this copy of this 11 by 17 map that we were talking about last month, and I'm going to get our GIS department to make a larger one so we can have at the meeting, so it'll be the one that's on the board. So it's easier to determine if the house is in the East Main District, the National Register District, or the North Manning Avenue District. It'll help us out in deciding what we're looking at, how we review such items. And that's just something I wanted to mention.
I personally want to thank you for that because I think it will be very beneficial to the group, and thank you. Seriously, thank you very much.
Sure. During the past several months, we've talked about an amendment to the zoning ordinance, and we finally got word from the legal department that what we can do, and probably wouldn't want to act on it today since it's such a big thing, is to put it on next month's agenda and have some comments about what's leading up to this point. And what we could do at next month's meeting is to look at the proposed amendment. And I think I didn't hand it out, but this is what I wanted to hand out to you. Let me just hand it out real quick.
Robert, this is the same document that was presented to us earlier.
Yes, sir. And the procedure to get a zoning ordinance amendment through would be to make to have the Historic Zoning Commission make a recommendation to the Planning Commission. All zoning ordinance amendments has to begin with the Planning Commission. We would present our case to them, and they would look at it, schedule a public hearing, and forward a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council would schedule another public hearing and then have 3 readings on the proposal. That's the process. I think if we decide to go ahead and do this, the proper thing would be to, at next month's meeting, is to consider a proposed amendment, make a motion and an approval, and start the process that way. And I just handed out this amendment, proposed amendment. It's what we talked about at the last meeting, to see if you're, are happy with it, or if you want to make any changes. And you can look at it between now and next month, and we can actually make a formal recommendation at the next month's meeting.
As I remember, we also shared this with various people in the city, and they were going to get back to us their comments. Have we received those comments?
I haven't received any, and I think the legal department sent that out, so I'm not sure if
Can we follow up with a letter to those same individuals stating that by such and such a date that we would like to receive their comments so we can move forward on this? It would seem silly to move forward without their review comments. It would be nice to have that in a package, that we receive their comments so we can review this in our next meeting and go over the entire thing.
It was my understanding from talking with Ms. McGannon that I guess the preferred procedure would be for the Historic Zoning Commission to review this. If this is something that the Zoning Commission likes or would want, then essentially to request this. If you have some changes you'd like to discuss, different kind of language or different approach, that could also be done, and then that the Commission would essentially request what it wants to request, okay, and that then the staff, other staff would respond after that time. Okay. So I had misunderstood, I think, over the last couple of months. I thought that we were waiting, I thought that our department was waiting on comments back that we would discuss at this time. And I was advised that the preferred approach is to basically have the Commission, if this is good, and if it's not what y'all would like, then we'll put it in the terms that you would like to have, and then we go from there. Right. So I guess I would recommend that if someone has some comments at this point, we certainly could entertain that, or we would publish this as an agenda item for next month, and then at that time have a more full discussion on it. Again, there could certainly be any discussion that anyone would like to offer today, but to have it as a discussed agenda item next month, with presumably an action by the Commission to request an addition or change to the code, or depending on how it all comes out, there may want to be another deferral for some additional drafting or discussion, but whatever is appropriate at the next meeting.
What is the pleasure of the Commission? Are there any comments you'd like to offer at this time?
Is it fair to say, Mr. Ives, that then what would take place is if we agree and vote to present this to the Planning Commission, that other department heads would likely make their comments to the Planning Commission?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, I understand that.
Do we need a motion to move this forward to an agenda item for next week, next time?
I don't believe so. I think if that's acceptable, we'll have it on the agenda for next month.
Then, without further comment, if that's agreeable to the Commission, we'll just make this an agenda item for our next meeting next month. Hopefully, then next month, provided we have other business, or I guess we could make this our sole business thing. Yes. Robert, is there anything else on the agenda?
I don't have anything else.
Then is there anything else from the Commission who would...
Maybe one suggestion, Mr. Chairman, on this memorandum. The two major important statements in here is indicating that shall afford the Historic Zoning Commission an opportunity to review and provide written comments. That could be highlighted, if those two statements, that, and then prior consultation is not required for maintenance if there's no change. They could be highlighted so it's easy for whoever is reading it to really pull out of this memorandum the two most important statements in it.
Can you underline that?
Sure.
And then let me have that, because can't find it real quick. Or highlight it.
That's a good comment. Is there any further discussion or comments?
I'm quite confident that it's already taken care of, and yet I would, just for the record, like to say that the minutes should reflect that Mr. Becker stepped down from his chair as a commissioner to discuss the agenda item that involved his property, yes, and that he did not participate in any discussion or vote on that matter.
Thank you. Then if there's no further discussion, the chair would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Then we are adjourned. Thank you very much.